Tariffs are illegal. If you do any tariffs, you're going to go to tariff jail and everything will be over forever. Unless maybe that's
Wow. Well, you
what
definitely
happened.
had a different reading of the Supreme Court ruling on tariffs than I did, Joe. But I
Okay.
like the enthusiasm for the topic here.
So
I
we know there was some news. We don't usually make this a news oriented show, but this was pretty big news. So can you fill us in like what happened? Because we're going to learn all about tariffs in the rest of the episode, which we've already recorded. Not to pull the curtain back too much, but what's the deal? Are tariffs now? Are they banned? Are tariffs over? Are we not doing tariffs
They are
anymore?
definitely not over. President Trump
Okay.
still loves tariffs. We've already got new ones in place, but
Oh wow.
it was still a significant Supreme Court decision. I mean, 6-3. You don't see that many justices agreeing on much these days. But look, what they basically said is doing tariffs for quote national emergency reasons, doing a blanket tariff like President Trump tried to do on all these different countries. That's a no-no. Yeah,
Okay.
that was not. He kept using this law. It's called IEPA, the International Economic Emergency Powers Act, to do most of
Okay.
the tariffs that he did last April on Liberation Day when he stood with the big chart out in the
I love a
Rose
big chart.
Garden.
I just want to say, someone
It
who's
was
worked with
definitely
data in the
quite the
past,
chart. It's
I love a big
memorable.
chart. But okay, yes, but yes. So of those the Liberation Day
Yeah.
tariffs, so
Let me put it into human terms, okay? Because I think you're
okay,
right. It's hard to
yeah,
know, like, what tariffs are we talking about? So basically, depending upon how you calculate it, before the Supreme Court ruling, the average tariff rate had gone up to maybe 12%, 13% from like
okay,
super low 3% before the second term. And now, after the Supreme Court ruling and the new tariffs the president's already put on, we're probably somewhere like 10%. So we're a little bit lower, which is good. And in dollar terms, we were paying about an extra $1,000 per household in 2025. But those tariffs here in 2026, it's down to like $700 per household. So
okay.
some savings there, some savings. But
So
the
yeah,
yeah,
well, of course, in our episode that is to follow our intro, we're doing a cold open, folks. We're becoming real Hollywood. But in that, we'll find out. Well, what is yes, there is the sort of dollar amount cost to tariffs, but then there could be another side of that for those that work in manufacturing domestically. But yes, in terms of like cost of goods and stuff or imports or whatever, it is an extra. So it was going to be 1,000, or it had been 1,000 annually. Is that how that?
yeah, right,
And,
about a
and it
thousand
comes down
dollars a
to
year now.
700. So what you're saying is the Supreme Court just gave me $300, and I should go buy
Yeah,
something for
I mean,
$300.
basically.
Okay.
Basically, that's why you saw a lot of cheering and
Hmm.
businesses, a little bit on Wall Street, even though it's not totally overturned, like you were saying in the beginning. And there's still obviously a lot of chaos. Is the government actually, the U.S. Treasury actually going to issue refunds to Costco
Yeah.
and Walmart and FedEx and all those other places or not? Honestly, I think from an economist's view, they will eventually issue the money back, but probably to the businesses. I don't think, Joe, that you and I
Right.
are going to really see much. But if a company like a Costco or Walmart gets a big pile of cash back, you would hope that they might not give you dollars, but they might give you some good discounts or some savings, some extra specials at some points in 2026.
See, I'm trying to think back to any example of this where companies got free cash and not free. I should say got tax cuts, and whether that was passed on to the consumer. That'll have to be a whole episode of its own
Yeah.
about that's got to be some kind of an economics. But
Right.
yeah,
What
I
to
didn't
do
take
with
that
that, or do
class.
they just invest it all in AI? I mean, we'll see. Obviously,
Or do
different companies.
they send it to what's the people that buy the stock, right? Like
Yes, the
the
shareholders give a nice
shareholders. Yes.
dividend.
Yeah, dividends. I remember that. I vaguely remember that. I didn't take the good econ class that you and many of our friends and classmates took. I I mean, it wasn't a bad econ class, but it wasn't like it wasn't the Cadillac experience, I guess. So anyway, okay, so tariffs still exist. We still have tariffs. Some people still love them, some people still hate them, but some specific types of tariffs, which we'll be talking about in the later part of this episode, but some types of tariffs under the IEPA.
You got it.
All right, yeah, under the IEPA, some specific types of tariffs are no longer allowed, or that instantiation, that initiation of tariffs.
Yeah, they got the cut
Yeah,
treat.
is I guess I don't want to get too deep in the weeds because we're trying to do just this little tiny addendum, but is there a version of events where those could be used? Like, so this ruling makes it so that you can't do tariffs under that law anymore.
That's right. The Congress,
Wow.
excuse me, the Supreme Court said that when Congress passed that law in the 70s, the word tariff does not appear anywhere in that
Oh,
law, and that the intention was not to give the president any tariff power under that authority.
interesting.
And so that's why the White House has immediately turned to other authorities. But the important takeaway is he, the president, any president, but particularly
Mhm.
President Trump, the tariffs will basically can't be much higher than 15% going forward.
Wow.
Before he could, he was putting some wild and crazy ones,
Yeah.
40%, 25%, he even threatened Canada at one point with 100% tariff. He can't just wake up and say, I'm mad at some foreign country, and so I'm going to threaten you or slap on a
Hmm.
big tariff. It's really hard
Yeah.
to do that now going forward.
And that would be awful to do to Canada right now because they just lost you know, they just
Yeah, that
lost
would be
the
some
hockey
extra harsh,
thing.
harsh after the
Yeah.
Olympic
Yeah.
men's hockey game and the women's hockey game. Let's be
Mm,
real.
yeah. Yeah.
um,
Well, our
so
love to
yeah,
all
that's
of our
what's
friends in
different.
Canada.
It's a bit of a straitjacket on the president's
Right.
tariffs. There will still be tariffs, but they can't be quite as wild and crazy, and they
Gotcha.
probably won't be quite as high.
Awesome. Okay. Well, thank you for shedding some light on that, Heather. And I think if it seems like I'm getting this a little too well for a moron, it's because I've benefited from the part of the episode that you're about to hear, where I learned about tariffs. So anyway, thank you again, Heather, and thank you to our audience. This will be a little bit of a unconventional episode, in that we're going to have this little bit at the beginning and then an intro, and then but I hope you'll enjoy it. All right, I will see you again soon, Heather. Take care.
But
I think it's helpful to have it recording a little bit before we actually say okay now, and we have our big cut, like the big like an old Hollywood stuff. Those by the way, apparently a big part of why they had the clack was because the click would help them sync the audio and video. Which I never knew that. All right. So let me get my outline ready. All right, and we'll do a 3. Hello, and welcome to the Moronomics podcast. I'm Joe. I'm a moron. And oh wait, you know what? Okay, sorry. Let's start over. So after I say welcome to the Moronomics podcast, that's where you can jump in and say, I'm Heather, or I'm Heather Long, or however you want to introduce yourself. Okay, sorry. Start again. 3, 2. Hello, and welcome to the Moronomics podcast.
I'm Heather Long, the economist for the hour.
And I'm Joe, the moron for the hour. In this podcast, an accomplished, brilliant economist attempts to explain concepts from her field to her high school classmate, who's kind of a moron. So we have a lightning round question for those new to the show. Instead of doing how are you, we assume that we are both doing okay. We'll do lightning round questions instead. Goodness. So for this week, okay, so economists, when you wear a blazer, or in men's case, a sport coat, do you guys button the bottom button?
Oh, we're going deep on this one.
Yeah, if there's like
Yikes.
more than one button, I mean, obviously it's a single button, maybe you button that button, but like if there's 2 buttons, do you leave the the bottom one undone, or is there a protocol to this for economists specifically?
Well, gosh, and it's even trickier for female economists. I've definitely been called out if you have your buttons done on TV, people often think you're
Oh,
uptight. So I've learned the hard
oh,
way that when I'm presenting, I need to be a little more open. But I will say, so I don't know. I That's my best knowledge on economists. But I
okay.
will say, economists are known for drinking a lot of Diet Coke, and I do fall into that category.
Okay. Diet Coke economist. Okay. Hey, and that's our commander in chief, Professor Doctor Donald Trump, also a big fan of Diet Coke. So hey, everybody can find some place to meet. We all have these things that tie us together. Anyway, sorry. Um, so that's our lightning round question. I might have another one for you later. I had another one that I really liked. Anyway, so plugs. Heather, do you have anything you'd like to plug this week?
Sure. Yeah, I'll stick with my always on finance themes. We got a really good question on our first episode. It was a question about financial management, but here's my best tip these days for finance. Freeze your credit. So there's three key credit bureaus: Experian, Equifax, and TransUnion. You can go online or call them up and you just say, I want to freeze my credit. And that means no one can take your social security number or your identity and open a credit card or try to get an auto loan. And
Huh.
yeah, but there's just so much data theft right now. And
Okay.
that's the easiest way to ensure that no one is stealing your data to try to open some whole other financial account. It's not
That's a
totally foolproof, but it's pretty good.
That's a very good tip. I like that. Actually, years ago now, probably 15, 16 years ago, I actually someone somehow hacked my at the time debit card, which I never used anywhere. Someone hacked it and used it to take out a membership for Experian.
Oh, that's kind
I
of funny.
like two or three different
Your
memberships
experience
with
story.
the credit monitoring company. I'm like, do you guys know about identity theft? Like, do you know how to do it? Because it seems kind of like you're like, what are you doing? Like, anyway.
Yeah, at least you're gonna at least
So
try to get your tax refund.
right, like yeah, take something other than a membership for credit monitoring. Anyway, my plug for this week is oh, I didn't have one ready, but I will say probably should be eating more protein, everybody. However much protein you're eating, it's probably not enough. I've heard people say you should have as many grams per day as your lean weight goal. So in pounds. So if your goal weight is 150 pounds, or in my case, probably a little bit more than that, but you should be eating that number of grams of protein, apparently. So yeah, just get more protein in your diet. All right. So the concept for the podcast I already described. I'm Joe. I work in local government human resources. I'm extremely boring. And Heather, did you want to do a little just about you?
I'm currently chief economist at Navy Federal Credit Union and spent almost 20 years covering the economy for CNN and the Washington Post, among other places. So pretty,
Yep.
yeah,
Yeah. And well,
economics
and
all the time. It's the
yes,
summary.
yeah. It's and we know each other from high school, which that I mean, if you want to get into all that stuff, go check out episode 1. It goes a bit longer, and we'll talk all about that sort of thing. But anyway, so in terms of show news, we're gonna get into the meat of things very soon here. But in terms of show news, I just wanted to say we've been overwhelmed. As we record this, we have only gone live with one episode so far. And we've just been overwhelmed by the positive response. We pretty much only shared it with friends and family at this point, but we've been really overwhelmed by the positive response, a lot of very kind words and some helpful suggestions, including some suggestions of topics to cover. So we have already a pretty long list, and it's good to have a few extras on there. And I have been adding to it. I don't know if you've been watching the Google Doc at all, but so we're not going to run out of material anytime soon. We won't have that excuse to get rid of me, Heather. But
Yeah, it's been awesome. And I just want to especially thank everyone who's told my parents how great it is. They have not watched or listened yet, but so it's been really fun to try to urge them to get on the trend.
yeah, I like it. Giving your parents the business. So other show news. I mean, this was, I guess, that was news. Oh well, if you're watching this or listening to this after our second one, which you would be probably, we are on Apple Podcasts, we are on YouTube, and we are on Spotify now. I mean, we've been on them for a little bit, but we are live on those. If you want to connect with us on social media, on let's see, X, as I call it, X, the Everything app, we are at Moronomics, the same name as the name of the show. On YouTube, we are the same user at Moronomics. If you would like to email us directly, well, email me. I'm the one checking the email, but our Gmail for this is moronomicspod. Odd. Moronomics, the channel name, the X handle. We're on Bluesky as well, as I like to say, it's Blue Sky, but we're on Bluesky as Moronomics. These were not taken, but moronomics at gmail.com. The email address was taken. I thought that was a little odd. But anyway, you can email if you want. You're probably going to get me, and I will I'll pass that along to Heather if it's relevant for her. I am working on a Facebook page. There is a Facebook page, but it is very much a work in progress. I am not real familiar with making Facebook pages. This is my first one. So wish me luck on that. All right. That's all for show news. So on to the meat of the topic. I I was telling Heather just before we hit record that I feel like I know less about this than almost anything else on the list. Today is tariffs. And I guess, are they any good? I mean, who likes tariffs? Who doesn't like tariffs? I mean, what do they do? I mean, I have this vague notion from high school history that they are something to do with taxes and international stuff. I mean, that's what I gather from the news context on news. So get us started on tariffs. What are they? What do they do?
Well, I think you got it. So a tariff is another word for a tax, and it
Oh,
specifically is levied on goods that are coming into the country or imports, as you were saying. That's your international part that you were going with from history class.
okay.
And it's very simple. Like, why do you put a tax on almost anything? It's a way to raise revenue, but it's also a way to discourage people to make items more expensive. So the idea is to make the foreign goods more expensive, usually to protect or grow the industries at home.
I see. So and this is, I think I remember, it was from one of the presidential campaigns. There's too many of them now in my lifetime. That I feel like I'm getting old. It's like, was that one back in Dickety 8 or, but I remember some politicians saying, if you tax something, you're going to get less of it. And is that kind of the idea here is so like, so we would, this is like the time preference high and low. So if something is an import to us and we don't want them to send that stuff to us as much, then we would basically penalize them or say, if you really want to send us that stuff, you're going to pay extra.
Exactly. Well, who's going to pay extra? So this
Oh,
is
I see.
part of the debate, so that the tariffs are often portrayed as, oh, all those people overseas, those foreigners, those foreign companies are going to pay this tax in order to get their product into the U.S. market. But usually, certainly in the last 70 years, the data indicates that it's usually the American firm and ultimately the American consumer, the buyer, who's going to ultimately foot that bill and pay that tax. So that's where the politics and the economics
Okay.
start to diverge. But you're right. The whole purpose of this is to either protect an American industry and hope it'll grow, or to get more revenue for the U.S. government.
So,
And
so who, oh, I'm sorry. I interrupted you. Who actually gets that money? Like, who's like, I know when I pay my taxes, I mean, it's obviously it's payroll, at my employer, but like they are in coordination with revenue services, like one at the federal government, one at the state level, and so on. Who who's actually like? Is there like a guy who stands next to the shipping, container or the container ship? And he's like, I'm picturing because I'm Italian. I'm picturing some guys.
you just let me moisten my beak a little bit. Just you just gotta give me. If you're gonna bring in all these iPods, you gotta give me. You know,
who is that like? Yeah, how does that work?
Oh, well, I think you've got it mostly right. I mean,
Oh, okay,
the tariff collectors, kind of like tax collectors, is a big business right now. They are so it's formerly known as U.S. Customs and Border Patrol. It's a part of DHS, the Department of Homeland Security, which people
okay,
are hearing a lot about right now for ICE and other things that we're not going to touch today.
yeah,
But yeah, that so there's the obvious place that you're talking about. It's pretty obvious when those big, huge ships that you can't miss with the 1,000 containers show up in Baltimore or in Los Angeles at the big ports. Same thing when they fly in on the cargo ship, on the cargo airplanes. But the
right.
fascinating one that really changed a lot in the last year, and I even experienced this myself, I should have brought my bill, packages coming into the United States. So there used to
Oh,
be an exemption. You could order up to like $700, right? And the idea was not everybody can fly to Paris and buy whatever. And so we should allow people to, buy something online and have it shipped from overseas. And if it's just a small something, or a gift or a small purchase, they should be allowed to bring that in without a tariff. Well, that's over. That party is over.
okay,
And so I actually got one. A friend sent me a gift from Europe. It wasn't super expensive. It was like a small model of a boat in order to
okay.
celebrate my new job here at Navy Federal. And then, sure enough, Joe, the bill showed up. The bill
Wow,
showed up from the Postal Service, the UPS
wow,
service, and it was very threatening. It was like, if you don't pay this within 30 days, we're gonna escalate it to collections.
wow. That I have to say I don't order a lot of things or get a lot of things shipped internationally, but that's surprising. And well, that really expands too. Like I don't know, the nature of the U.S. Postal Service's what they have to do because they're now. I mean, well, I guess they were doing this. I mean, there people were collecting. I mean, on big things that were shipped in. I guess they were doing this before, but now they're. Wow, that's wild.
It
So
is wild. It is, I mean, yeah, it's kind of amazing that they're able to do this on even small packages. But yeah, all the revenue currently goes to the federal government on the
okay,
tariffs that are in place. This is something, that the federal government has to do. I don't I'm trying to think. The state of California or whatever could try this, but they don't legally have the ability to tax foreign items.
oh,
I
that's
don't
now
think. If
that's
there's a lawyer who comments on this, I believe
right.
that's true.
That makes me think about something like wild with how polarized certain states are from each other. Uh, could we see tariffs between like California if California wants to export something, so to speak, to I don't know, like Texas? I mean, not that they would be adversarial. I think in general the states do get along, but could a state apply tariffs to things from another state?
Generally, no. I believe that's a
Okay,
violation of the intrastate or interstate commerce laws, which are supposed to be handled by the
I
federal
see.
government.
Okay.
There are some exemptions, and as Pennsylvanians, we know stuff like this. Like technically, you're not supposed to be going over the border to Maryland and buying a car and then bringing it back, or buying fireworks just across the
Well,
border.
yeah.
Obviously, a lot of people do that, but yeah, technically, the government of Pennsylvania can tax you on certain things to try to equalize what they see as you skirting their tax laws. But that's more like personal. I don't know, it's a little bit of a different legal
Right,
category.
yeah. That's not a tariff, though.
No, not
That's a
really.
different thing. Okay,
Yeah.
yeah. Because that just got me thinking, like, and I guess I mean, I don't know. As a car guy, one of the first examples I thought of was if you bring a car to a new state and you want to title it there, you have to pay a tax. But that's not a tax for owning it in the state. That's a tax for registering it. So yeah, I got you.
Yes. Yes. This is how they get around these things. Yes.
Right, yeah. Oh man.
But
I mean,
yeah, that's the tax lawyer hat that um But
So
yeah,
so
the U.S. has had a long and complicated history with tariffs. Obviously, they're back at the forefront. Who loves tariffs? We all know President Trump loves tariffs and is a big believer. And but we met in history class, learning about all these tariffs that were in place. Really,
yeah,
was one of the main revenue raisers up through the Civil War and
really,
Construction period was tariffs. And the argument then, and tariffs were much more common across the world. But the argument then is kind of the argument that places like China make today, or were making, which is, the US was a nascent country, and how are we going to compete against the great industrial Great Britain as this
right,
fledgling country? And so we needed to tariff in order to grow our, cotton gins and production, in order to grow our tobacco production, and in order to not just buy all this stuff from Europe, right?
right, right. Rather than throwing the Brits tea in the harbor, we'll throw our own tea in the harbor. Okay,
Yeah,
yeah, I got you. Yeah, yeah.
that's what we did.
So
We raised the price on all those European items in order to make them more expensive, in the hopes that people would be encouraged to build those factories in the US, small
what's the
factories,
word you
generally.
used last week? You talked about a nudge. Is this a form of a nudge?
Oh, yeah.
Uh,
This is like
okay.
a hammer nudge. This
Okay,
is
so
what
this is
we
more than a
did.
nudge. This is a shove. Yes. Okay.
There you go. I like
I got you. I
I
got you.
like
Okay. So what I mean, I was shocked. You just said that most of our federal budget came from tariffs prior to, I don't know, like for the first, like, what, 100 years or something like that of the country?
Yeah, it was a huge form of taxation before we get to the introduction of the income tax. And I always forget the exact year. This is where my tax lawyer side is not so good. Yeah, 1913. So,
Okay.
yeah,
It's
we
that
got
recent?
income tax. Yeah. And
Wow.
partly this is something that I think goes to the heart of who pays the tax. The introduction of the income tax is done partly to raise more money, but partly because it's seen as a fairer form of taxation, that the rate would
Right.
be higher. If you're Jeff Bezos, right? Even if we just say a 3% flat tax, you're going to pay a lot more money than, if you're Joe, right?
Yeah.
Working in
Right.
county
Yeah.
government, and, what's 3% of your income. And so, um, the problem with the consumption, with any sort of tariff, is it's a consumption tax, and usually
Oh,
lower income people or middle income people, right? You're spending more of your money on the
absolutely.
basics of life, right? And so if it, going back to those early days, if you had, you kind of had to buy tea, most people saw that as a necessity, in the way people see coffee or Diet Coke as a necessity now, or
Yeah.
protein shakes or whatever. And, so the foods and the housing and the blah, blah. So anyway, that kind of stuff it hits their budget a lot when you
Th-
rely heavily on either a tariff or a consumption tax. So,
This is
these are debates about fairness.
this is blowing my mind. So, like, I never thought about taxes in this way, that there are ones that certain populations just pay more of, like a consumption. So like a sales tax is an example of
Yeah.
that would be a consumption. Okay. So a
And
sales
that's
tax or a
actually,
tariff.
while, as you probably know, Pennsylvania exempts a lot of clothing and certain food items from the
Yes. Yeah.
tax, from the sales tax. And they do that
Yeah.
because it's not seen as very fair to
Yeah.
lower moderate income families.
I mean, hypothetically, a sales tax would be, I'm trying to think it
Whereas like a
through.
sales tax on Ferraris, on luxury cars, most people would be like, okay, they can afford
Yeah,
it.
I think you can spare. It's like I remember asking my dad, like, what kind of gas mileage would a Lamborghini get? And this wasn't like me asking him last week. This is when I was
He's
a little
like, who
kid.
cares?
And he said, if you can afford a Lamborghini, you don't worry about the gas price, or the gas bill for it. But okay, but there are types of but like I know income taxes, there's like exemptions, and like the first X amount of money you pay no tax on, and then the next band. By the way, this is like, I only learned about this. Our friend Brian from high school explained tax brackets to me, and I was embarrassingly into my adult years before I understood tax brackets. Um, But anyway, and so you pay you pay nothing on the first X or first chunk. You pay a small percentage on the next chunk, but from this, I'm not going to try to explain tax brackets because I'm sure I don't really understand them. But anyway, so but income tax is a type of tax that that's more likely to fall on a certain income bracket, right?
Yeah,
Like
the
you and I
hope
pay
is, I mean,
income
there's different
tax.
ways to design it, and I think earlier I was stupidly talking about 3% flat tax, which
Oh yeah,
obviously
it's a
is
flat tax. Yeah,
3% across the income spectrum. But you're right. Most income taxes are structured in a way that the rate it gets bigger. So it's it
sure.
might 10% or 5%, whatever, on the first income, or the first
Yeah,
$10,000, and then the rate goes up, and then you get to the $200,000 or more, and the rate
yeah.
jumps right now, I think, to 30 something percent. And so so yeah, you charge more to the wealthier people.
But I mean, there is a point where that maxes out because there's a top bracket or whatever, and then this is one that so what's Elon Musk's income tax like, or Jeff Bezos, or any number of our billionaire class, what's their income tax like? Because I don't think they pay much income tax because they're not
No,
really
because
drawing a
most of
salary.
right. Well, no, most of their wealth, so separate income from what most of their
Oh,
wealth
okay.
is in their stocks, right? They own all that stock in Tesla if you're Elon or whatever, and then in Amazon if you're Jeff
Hmm.
Bezos. And so that is a capital gains tax. So most of
Right, I
their
remember that word now. Okay,
yeah, so that's another discussion, but the
right.
capital gains tax is lower than the highest income tax rate. So
I'm sorry.
basically, if you
This
found your
this is
own
such a tangent. I'm
company and you
sorry.
make a lot of money from the stock market, you're way better off tax-wise generally
Okay.
than if
See,
you're working for the man or the woman as a W-2
right.
employee.
Working for guys, gals, and non-binary pals.
Yeah,
Yeah,
whomever.
yeah,
Uh,
yeah. So, but
AI
that's
overlords one day.
you know. So I apologize for this. We've gone far afield from tariffs. I realize. So, um, but thinking about there are these three types of taxes, and tariffs are fall into kind of the consumption tax category,
Yes.
and then income taxes are this salary based,
Yep.
based on a paycheck that you get, and then there's the capital gains, and it seems like those three types of taxes are paid by paid. If you're going to pay taxes, you're more likely to pay one type depending on what your income is. That's wild.
Kind of. I mean, obviously, everyone pays a consumption tax,
Right, yeah.
but
But
in
if you're
terms of the
the bulk of
share
your
of your
taxes,
income, yeah,
yeah,
the share of your income, the burden is higher on lower and middle income people anytime you're
for a
doing.
consumption tax. Yeah. Okay. I got you. Okay. So I know we said our professor, Dr. Trump, is a fan of tariffs, but I mean, not in a specific name sense, but who's big on tariffs? Who likes these? I mean, in terms of categories or sectors or something like that. Is there a profile, I guess you could say, of a person or an industry or something that is a fan of tariffs, as opposed to profile someone who is not a fan of tariffs?
Yeah, that's a good question. I guess I think about it like this: setting aside President Trump, and I think we
Yeah,
all know
yeah,
where he falls on the spectrum. Um, I think there's been a real reversal in thinking about tariffs. Like for when we were in high school in the 90s, early 2000s, right? It was the bonkers era of free trade. And that
yeah.
meant you wanted the lowest barriers, the lowest tariffs possible. I mean, we had almost no tariffs, right? The effective tariff rate was got down to 2 or 3%, basically almost
Wow.
nothing. And, the idea was we wanted this flow of goods trading around the world is flat, all that kind of stuff. But, I think we learned over time that there's economic reasons you want to keep some manufacturing and industries in the United States, there are also national security reasons that you
Yeah.
want to keep some industries. And so when I think you've seen both parties, not just Trump, but he kind of really ushered it in, but also, the Biden administration, targeted tariffs
Mm,
are really popular. And the idea of it's what do I mean by a targeted tariff? Like instead of saying, okay, every product that comes in, we're going to tax at 10%. A targeted tariff says, okay, we really need to build semiconductors in the United States. We can't just totally rely on Taiwan for this because what happens if China invades Taiwan and then we get no semiconductors? Like, that's dangerous. And
things
so,
get interesting.
yeah. And so we are going to put a really high tax on tariff on foreign semiconductors coming in. And then, in the hopes that we can revive the United States domestic tariff industry. And we've seen something kind of similar with steel. We come from
Right.
Pennsylvania. U.S. Steel obviously has had a lot of troubles over the years competing against other foreign steel companies. But I think as a nation, we still want to be able to produce some steel domestically. And so they are big fans, steel industry, big fans of tariffs.
Okay.
Uh, and so, you get the targeted tariff debate is where it gets interesting. Most economists would still argue to you that it's a mistake to just, say, we're going to tariff everything coming in. There's a difference between like in the United States, do we really need to make soccer balls?
Right.
Or like we don't grow a lot of coffee here. It's not really a great place to grow coffee. Do we really want to tariff, Brazilian coffee beans or Colombian coffee beans? Like, nah.
Right.
I mean, most people would say no. But there's other industries where you can begin to make an argument that there is a reason to have it and we should have a tariff in place. And that's where I would argue with my economics professors. Like they came from a different era. They were like, no tariffs, tariffs are bad. And I'm like, wait a minute. There's a middle ground here where tariffs in some cases make some sense.
I told you the other day I was poking around on X, the Everything app. I don't actually have the app, but I was poking around on there, and one of the memes I saw was "line go up." And I looked around at that a little bit, and then I realized this is rich and textured meme territory that I'm not going to be able to understand. But what I gathered is that as long as some measure of the economy, I don't know if it's the stock prices, like the indexes or indices, or if it's the uh, I never this is what a economics moron I am. Gross national or gross domestic product, whichever one, as long as that number keeps going up. And so is the sort of free trade perspective that whatever else happens, no, don't worry about that as long as the line is going up. Is that kind of the idea?
A little bit. And the
Okay,
argument is that people benefit because we're getting cheaper products.
I see.
And so, everyone benefits from cheaper products, and only a handful of people will be hurt by the factories that are closing or whatever. And we can compensate those people. Like that is the like pure economics
I see.
101 for a long time. That was the worldview.
That was
Obviously,
almost
I
like,
think our
oh, I'm
generation
sorry.
is, a little skeptical of that. We're skeptical of
Right.
that as we've witnessed what it looks like in those towns when the factory
Yeah.
closes and we don't do a good job of compensating and helping those people. There's also people watching this who can immediately talk about environmental impacts. Like, does it really make sense to be shipping all this stuff all over the world? There's trade-offs. There's a lot of trade-offs, a lot of nuance that begins to build. Obviously these national international alliances. We would love to trade with Canada. Well, we used to. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because they're our friends and our neighbors in Mexico. We all are in this together as North America. And so it doesn't really matter if it's made in Mexico or Canada or the United States, as long as the GDP is going up and everybody's benefiting. Maybe that matters less than having it made in Russia and trying to import.
Right.
So, I think these debates have gotten a lot more interesting around the
Yeah.
concepts of, okay, tariff doesn't equal bad or good.
Yeah.
There's sort of, the question is, why do we have the tariff?
And what
And
is
I
the
would
tariff?
argue, yeah,
What does
in
it
some
do?
cases it
What's
makes
the point of
sense.
it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, I mean, so from my own, very limited experience, but, this is, anecdote, so not data, but, I saw you had an "I love data" sticker on, before, but, uh my experience, so early on in the pandemic when I was working, at the time I was volunteering at a local charity, we had people that were just desperate to get their hands on, masks to, stop the spread or whatever, and masks were at this incredible premium, and because it turns out we didn't make any of those in the United, or no, I shouldn't say any, I don't know, but we
Very
don't
few.
make
Yeah.
many of them. Yeah. Now, on the other hand, the interesting one was toilet paper because we do make that in this country apparently. Like that is manufactured here. We don't ship our toilet paper in. But anyway, but so like yeah, that was to me that was an experience that made me think, yeah, we probably ought to be doing more manufacturing here. If like you say essential things and emergency things and yeah, definitely something like I don't know, anything medical supplies. Like I realize I don't know this. Maybe we don't make antibiotics in this country. And that seems like that would be a bad thing if we don't make our own antibiotics. If we're reliant on like that's and not even because I think other countries would wish us ill, they might, but if we're reliant on another country for antibiotics and they say, "Hey, sorry, interruption in our supply chain. You got to find someplace else to get that." We should probably have some kind of a capacity to make that stuff. At the very
Amen,
least.
Joe. Preach. I mean, I agree with
Okay.
you. I used to have this debate when I was on the Washington Post editorial board because there were some people who were just really hardcore set in this mentality that no,
Yeah.
we'll be able to import it and drugs still from Switzerland. We like Switzerland, they're neutral. And
Oh yeah.
I think we do. We generally get along with the Swiss, but
They seem great.
I
They
like,
really do.
but like you say, I think you know, there are some pretty easy explanations for why you don't want to fully rely or overly rely on production of certain critical items from certain countries.
Yeah.
It's a
Man.
national security argument as much as an economic one.
So I guess thinking about this tariff thing, the way they seem to have been administered, as far as I can tell, is I just hear about percent and country, and that would be not a targeted tariff. That would be, I mean, it's targeted at a country, but that's not like an industry targeted tariff, right?
And that's where I think President Trump has struggled with the tariffs is in the second administration. In the
Hmm.
first administration, he was pretty targeted. He did steel, he did aluminum, he did about a third of Chinese products. You can argue if all of that was needed or not, but I think there was kind of this closer to a scalpel approach as opposed
Right.
to this
Yeah.
like I don't know what.
Chainsaw.
Yeah, that one we're
Yeah.
in
Yeah.
chainsaw or like bulldozer. We're just gonna knock it all down. We're gonna get it all
I
with the
think,
tariff.
but I
And
think we could maybe. Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead.
uh, the way that I look at it, economists you can go country by country right now, but the way that people tend to talk about in economics speak is there's a pretty good tracker from the Yale Budget Lab if you really want to nerd out, and they've tracked the overall effective tariff rate. So if you average all the tariffs on all the items, kind of where are we at? And the numbers to keep in mind are, before we were at like 3% before Trump really goes in this game. It sort of hovers 3 to 4% after Trump and Biden stick with all these China tariffs from the first term. And then in the second term, President Trump threatens to go like 35%, really up there, like back to the levels of the history days.
Yeah.
Um, and he's we're currently around 17%. Um,
That's
so
more
it's
than I.
way higher than it was, but
It's an
whenever
increase. But I will say that's less than I expected you to
exactly,
say based on
exactly,
all the reporting about this thing.
yes,
I
and
thought you
so
were going to
then
say we're up
reporters
at
will call
40 or
me
50%, right?
yes, right,
That's what
and
I
so then
thought.
reporters
Okay.
will call and be like, "Well, the tariffs don't have much impact," and you're sort of like, "Okay, they do have an impact, but you have to understand that it's not, it's not what was initially threatened in the headlines." And if you
Right.
actually read, we're bringing in currently about $30 billion a month in revenue from the tariffs, which is a lot. And again, we were bringing like, under 10 million before. So there's been a
Yeah.
big increase. But if you think about 30 billion as a percent of things that we currently import, that tariff rate is about 10 to 12%. And so why
Okay.
is there a difference between the 17 and the 10 to 12? And the reason is uh, people are very good at ducking tariffs. So
Uh,
people bring things in from other countries or claim they're from other countries. There's definitely tariff dodging going on. And then there's
so
also
right.
tariff substituting.
Oh,
So people who may have brought a good, that would have come from China and would have had the tariff on it. Instead, something may come from Mexico or
that's what I was
Canada.
about to ask you. They pass it through. So a container ship sails. I know they don't sail, but it comes out of China.
China,
If it
if it
stops
stops in
in, I don't know, yeah, Vietnam or something like that, someplace that we don't, I don't know, a place that we don't have many tariffs.
Canada.
So does
Yeah.
it then become a ship from that place instead of from
It's
China?
not supposed to. This is called
Ah,
transshipping. It's not supposed to. But again, you don't have to be an
people are good at
international
hiding.
genius in shipping to realize that that's why there's a difference between 10 to 12% and 17%. We should be
Okay.
collecting 17% revenue, and instead we're collecting 10 or 11. So
And
there
so
you
this
go.
is, yeah, yeah. Well, but I will say, like, I don't know, 30 billion a month, not bad. Um, and if you multiply that by 12, that's arguably 360, yeah, 360 billion that we weren't bringing in before. Well, okay. Yeah, the marginal, right? So, say, what, probably like, we could say, 10 instead of, I mean, I'm doing the math on the fly here. I always have spreadsheets to help me with math when I'm at my job. I promise anyone who might be listening to this who works for a local government, your people do check everything. They run the calculations 3 times at least. So, but if we were say 10 billion, so before it was 120 billion, now it's about 360. So that's like 240 billion that we are collecting as revenue now that we can do stuff with. And I don't, from like a moron perspective, like Joe Schmo, Joe, from my perspective, as like a random guy in the United States, that kind of sounds good to me. Although, like you say, if that's making my stuff cost more, I mean, obviously, I'm not paying for an import car because both my cars are ancient. But I say both my cars as if I'm a rich man with multiple cars. They're both absolute rust buckets. I replaced the battery in my truck and it runs better now. Absorbed glass mat technology for anyone who's looking to buy a battery. It's worth a little bit extra money anyway. And
Did they tell
the
you that
window.
there was a tariff on the battery?
No, I don't think so. But I had to replace the window or the power window on my Buick because that went down yesterday, but didn't come back up. So anyway, but so I had a point to that. But oh yeah, it's I mean, so I'm thinking like this is not. People tend to treat it as all catastrophic, but like you say, like there are upsides to this. It's not just and I'm not trying to take a side here. Obviously, I'm trying to remain agnostic on this stuff. But the the other thing a tariff can do, like it's an economic instrument, but it can do political things. I mean, that's arguably maybe even a stronger thing that it does is it has a political function. I mean, not that we want to get into politics, but
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, I think that's a huge part of what's going on. Although, let me just flip your numbers around on you. Like, yeah, it sounds
mhm,
great that we have this extra 200 or 300 billion in revenue a year, but that's like $1,200 a month per house or per year per household. So most
oh,
household, typical household, right, is going to pay about $1,000 more per year. Obviously, it varies a lot, like you say. I too didn't buy a new car in the past year, so I haven't been, or a new stove or dishwasher or sofa or all those bigger ticket items that are really being
mhm,
socked by this. But people are absorbing it, a couple dollars here, a couple dollars there,
right.
and it adds up at the end of the year. And so I think if you ask people, are you happy that you're paying, however much you're extra paying in a year and
Right.
these tariff taxes, the answer is no, right?
Yeah.
Um, and unless there's a reason, and that's where I think people are a little bit more in favor of stuff that could bring jobs or industries back to the
Right.
United States that we all agree we need. Whereas if you're like, yeah, why are you tariffing my coffee?
Yeah.
No,
Yeah.
nobody's
So
gonna go be making coffee in,
yeah. Well, yeah,
Pennsylvania.
we're not gonna start growing coffee in the lush fields of Kansas. That's for wheat.
Oh, yeah,
That's
not for
yeah.
not generally no, generally no.
And it's interesting you mentioned the steel industry. So my dad's side of the family is from Cleveland area, and my dad's dad was a steel mill worker. He worked the railroad for a steel mill in Cleveland, and the prosperity that came from making that much steel in America. I mean, it built the country that we have, and so like that definitely resonates with me. If we can get industry like that going again, I mean, it's not good for my pocketbook. I mean, I work in human resources. Although that was an interesting thing. I think my dad said his dad said at some point, he said, find a job where you sit at a desk or something like that. I might be mixing up stories or something here, but yeah. So like, but the point is like, if we make things here, instead of just moving numbers around, we're gonna do a crypto episode. Oh man, I'm gonna have so many crypto questions, and questions about crypto. But anyway, yeah, I think if that's an outcome, maybe it's worth a little pain up front. Now we're back to time preference, right? Uh,
Hey, man, look at you dropping the knowledge. So,
oh man, I'm making connections, Heather. This is great. You're
no, I will
gradually
say
pouring economics knowledge into this naked skull here. Sorry, go on.
I mean, obviously, I agree with you. Like, look, I used to do cheerleading in high school and play on the field hockey team, and we would go play places like Steel High, Stilton
Oh
High
yeah,
Spire, a big steel hub. And, you could see I wasn't an economic genius then, and even I could see that things were in a pretty rough place at times there. And so you're right. I have a similar viewpoint to you about the importance of these jobs and these hubs and on a lot of levels. But look, I feel like I have to put the economist disclaimer that there's no doubt that we're in advanced manufacturing age now, and that most of manufacturing is not what our grandparents were doing with the, actual
right. Yeah,
screwing of bolts on a line, and most of it is actually, people sitting in on the factory, but doing computers and to operate the lines or the like oversight and control of the robots that are doing a lot of this
oh yeah,
building and construction now. So so there's no doubt that manufacturing has also been declining, not just because factories going to China, but because of technological innovation. But you're right, the jobs that remain are still pretty well paid. And
yeah.
these are pretty technical skills that are in demand. So
Mhm.
so yeah, I wouldn't justify that as the only reason to do a tariff, but I think it should be part of the picture. And really both President Trump and President Biden did a halfway decent job of trying to explain that.
Okay, so like that you're blowing my mind again right there. You mentioned this earlier. Biden did tariffs.
Well,
Uh
he kept the Trump tariffs in place,
oh, okay.
and then he did add, some more specific targets around semiconductors because that was one of his big
I do
initiatives.
remember that. Was that the CHIP
Bi-
Act?
Yeah, the bipartisan chip
Yeah.
act, and so
See, I was hoping for like a nice waffled barbecue, or maybe like down in Maryland
uh,
they have the chips that are with the Old Bay on them. Oh man. Anyway, sorry. No, but yes. So I didn't realize that included. I knew that they were subsidizing like new manufacturing
back.
facilities, but it included a tariff part too. That is
Well,
interesting.
kind of. I mean, it's more. It's kind of a complicated
Oh,
situation
okay.
with Taiwan.
Yeah.
um,
Okay.
so,
You don't have to get into it. We're running up on about an hour here, so and I feel like we're winding down a little bit. Okay, I feel like I am a confused mess about tariffs, but I'm a more well informed confused mess. And
I'll take it.
yeah,
Feel
great
feels like
job.
most of the world is kind of in a messy state with tariffs. Um,
Okay. I'm sorry. I know we were just winding up, but other countries have tariffs on us.
they do. They do.
Oh,
And so
I'm not. I'm
that's
acting like
another
I'm
part of
surprised,
right,
but
right. That's another part of the argument, is it fair? And um, certain there's always funny ones like Canada, domestic politics, right? So Canada has long had tariffs on our milk and dairy products because they're trying to protect Quebec farmers, or there's long-standing U.S. tariffs on Canadian lumber because we're trying to protect, Maine, Washington State logging industries. And,
right.
you get these like little things here and there, but broadly speaking, many over time since the early '90s, tariff rates have come down around the world.
Mm,
But the US has had some of the lowest rates in the world. And so this is
yeah.
another reason that, the economics professors are like, oh, we don't want to raise the tariff rates. But I think you're right. Like normal, rational people can say, wait a minute, I believe, I don't believe just in free trade. I believe in fair trade. And part of fair
Yes.
trade
Okay.
is, the, um,
If someone charges me a
yeah,
10% tax,
it should
why
be a
wouldn't I
little
charge
close.
them a 10%
Right.
tax?
It may
I
not
mean, I'm
be
bigger than
exactly
most
the
people, so
same.
arguably maybe I don't need to, but I'm literally bigger. But yes, I think is reciprocal a word that they use about this? Reciprocal
Yeah.
tax
Yeah.
or tariff? Yeah, okay. Yeah,
And
okay.
so, that's where like Trump's probably focuses too much from an economics point of view on the trade deficits and that
Mhm.
country's taking all this stuff from us. Realistically, they buy like we buy all these items from them and we send them dollars, and then they have reinvested those dollars into our economy and buying our US government debt. So we still benefit from that, even though it looks like there's this big deficit.
I mean, if they're buying
But
our debt, I don't know
yeah,
if that's
well,
I mean,
that's
it's
our
it's nice to be able to borrow the money, but yeah, I mean, we're gonna have to do a whole episode
yeah,
on
on
a whole
that,
nother
but,
episode, well, on that for sure, but also just on like trade deficits. And you know what? I'm
yeah,
putting it on the
but
list right
I
now
do
before I
think that
forget.
there's some there, I believe, when President Trump is trying to argue like, "Okay, Europe, you don't buy any of our meat because you think, oh, you don't want genetically modified products, and so, you wanna sell us all your cars, your Mercedes and your BMWs, but what are you buying from us?" I
Yeah.
think those are, like, legit questions to be pressing on the international stage at this point.
Okay.
Yeah. And even with
That is.
China, like you go to China today and they're a pretty advanced economy, right?
Yeah.
And so it's like, okay, China, you're not China 50 years ago. You don't
Right.
need all such level of protection now.
Yeah. Yeah. Man. Okay. That is. Yeah. Trade deficits. That might have to be one that comes up soon because I I've tried to think about this and not had a lot of success. But so great job as always in explaining things and trying to pour knowledge into my empty noggin on economics. Um, so for next week, we were thinking maybe just kind of a what even is economics? Like how do we even economics? What is that? What is that and what isn't that? That's what I was thinking at least. Does that sound like a topic for next week, next episode?
Yeah, I think we can give it a try.
Okay. Okay. And hey, if you're watching this and then you watch the next one and it's not about that, well, we changed our minds. So, it's the nice thing about not being monetized and having no boss. Uh, well, Heather, thank you again, and have a lovely, lovely week. And everybody, stay warm and safe out there. Bye bye.
Fine.